we feel like the country's like really super divided, and everybody hates each other, and we've all kind of gone crazy. But some of you guys are old enough to remember back in 1969 how the country had kind of lost its mind, right?
Yes.
Nam was going hardcore, and Helter Skelter, and the Manson family, and the Zodiac killer, and they killed JFK, and they shot RFK, and Malcolm X got shot. Oh man, like political assassination was a thing back then. It was crazy. Now my dad, who had grown up in the Depression, and it was hard scrabble in the 30s. It was rough, and he was so disappointed that even back then, when people were going hungry, people kind of pulled together. But in the 60s, it just wasn't like that. The country was being riven. And so my dad and I were making a drive from LA to the Bay Area, to Oakland, on a Sunday in the middle of summer. And it was, all he had for cash was a Chevron card. That's how we were going to pay for gas on this trip from LA to Oakland. That's all he had. And we lose all of our coolant at the base of the grapevine. We're about 8 miles south of Bakersfield, and the car overheats. And this was, again, way before cell phones, and there was none of the call boxes on the highway, and you are screwed, man. Your hood is up, and you're going to do some walking. And it is hotter than the hinges in Bakersfield in the middle of June. So he's looking at me, and he's just not having a great year. And wouldn't you know, just as we're sitting there going, what the hell are we going to do now? Up comes this flatbed truck with this young cowboy in it. And I think, at the time, cowboys seemed quite old to me. I think he would have been all of about 23. And he's got the cowboy hat on and the boots and another big buckle. And he says, hey fellas, looks like you need some help here. You want to see if we can't get you towed into Bakersfield? Now my father's first reaction is suspicion. What does this guy want? And the first words out of my dad's mouth are, well, now listen, I can't pay you. All I have is this Chevron card. And the guy was so like, I wasn't going to charge him. And somebody goes, oh, okay. So we use this electrical conduit to hook our bumper in his truck. Well, that's back, 1960 Oldsmobile. You could fire cannon shells out of that bumper. I mean, it was, right? So we're being towed in. He had a tube radio in his truck where when you started it, it had to warm up before it would play. And we were listening, I'm not kidding, we were listening to Buck Owens on the radio as we were driving to Bakersfield. Okay, so we roll in, and it's Sunday. So the garage isn't open, but he knows the mechanic who has a lift. So we're waiting for him outside of church as they all come out of Sunday morning church. And out comes this guy, and he's got the bolo tie and the nice shirt, and his wife looks like a Tourism for Sweden ad. Like she was a mail-order bride from, And he comes down and says, hey, Reggie, can you help these fellas? They need to get the water pump fixed on their Oldsmobile. He goes, sure thing. And my dad's like, well, now hang on a minute. Now I can't pay you. All I got is this Chevron card. I don't have any cash. He goes, oh, we'll work something out. And he's like, well, what does that mean? He goes, relax, we'll get it fixed, and we'll talk about it then. Okay. All right. Now we go down to there, and we find out he doesn't have the water pump part. So now we gotta get the Napa parts guy out of his house on a Sunday. So we're driving the flatbed over there. Guy says, yeah, no problem, I'll get you to it. So we get down to the store, we find the part, my dad says, no, listen, hey, everybody just cool it for a minute. I cannot pay you. All I have is this Chevron card. And they go, well, Cowboy says, if it'd make you feel better, I got a bunch of watermelons and I got to get loaded onto my flatbed at this rail spur. And I just as soon do it now, as long as you're here. Because it's pretty hot work. And, I reckon it's going to take us about an hour. My dad goes, great! So now we are inside a 160-degree rail car, pulling watermelons off of this thing, and putting them into the flatbed. And I think we must have done, oh man, it was a lot of loads. Okay. And we're sweating like pigs, but my dad is whistling because, this is going to work out. All right. Car is fixed, rolls up, running like a top. My dad's saying to him, hey, I really don't know how to thank you for this for such a good turn. And we're just about to go up, and the mechanic goes, oh, where do you think you're going? And my dad stiffens like a leopard, and he's like, I'm not selling the boy, if that's what this is about. And he's just absolutely in a panic. And the guy goes, no, my wife's going to make us all Sunday dinner. So, you guys are going to need a shower and maybe some clean shirts, for the drive. And my dad does this kind of boomerang, right, where he's, oh, okay, all right, okay. So now we're sitting down for an early dinner, late lunch in a Bakersfield backyard with gingham tablecloths. And that was my first beer, by the way. I think I was 9 years old. And they had a Budweiser that you had to tap, with the church key. It was gross at the time. And now here I am now. So the whole dinner, while we were eating the fried chicken from the chickens right over there, and the corn on the cob from Moline, Illinois, I'm sorry. And my dad the whole time while we're eating is doing this. Because he was just so ashamed at being so suspicious over their motives. They were just good folks, just saw some people in trouble, right? And he was just beside himself with, didn't know what to make of this. Okay, so we get into the car. I am wearing a cowboy shirt now that's about 4 sizes too big. I got it rolled up. You know those little buttons, those little pearl buttons? Right? And it had those. So we're driving home, and my dad said goodbye. And they were just the sweetest folks. Okay, so he didn't say maybe 3 words that whole drive home. And we finally get home, just my dad and I, and I'm getting into bed. And I remember this so vividly because I had just turned off the light in my room, and the light from the hallway was coming in. He was silhouetted in the doorway. And he says, hey, listen, no matter what you read in the papers, no matter what you see on TV or in the movies, or what you hear on the radio, that's how people really are. And then he said goodnight. And I thought, wow, that was a beautiful thing. If you had told my father at the beginning of the day, here's what's going to happen to you, Bill. Your car's going to break down in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of summer, in the California Central Valley. It's going to be 101 degrees. And then you're going to go to work in a rail car that adds another 50 to that. You're going to do a bunch of labor on a car that broke down. You and your son are going to be terrified that you're about to be kidnapped by some religious cult or something. And when you get home, your faith in humanity is going to be completely restored. How's that sound, Bill? He would not have been able to describe what circumstances would have led to that. But that has lasted me my whole life, that moment of realizing, wow, sometimes it seems like a bad thing. Whatever's happening to you, it seems like it's a bad thing. And it turns into something glorious, something life-affirming and wonderful. And I think of those people now, they were fountains, not drains. And I think they turned my dad into a fountain that day. So I'm mighty grateful that you had me here, Tim, and I hope that didn't ruin your meal. I drove them off Saturday. And I reckon that, I don't know if anybody had any questions, but it would be more than my pleasure to answer them if anybody had any. I've kind of blown out the candles by now.